That's always difficult to work with an artist with a strong feeling, because a good artist wants to try everything.
Yes.
And I remember when we were working with César, he was asking so many things and he was disturbing everything. Daum started in 1878 in Nancy, which is the east of France. At that time, there were two categories of crystal maker or glass maker. The big old factories and a few, just let's call them studio, in a number of parts of France. And at the very beginning, he didn't even started with what we call Art Nouveau. He started with other kind of styles, like Gothic. You know, the mood, it was the end of the century. We were just after first war between German and French.
Yes.
And you know, it was this kind of period where industrialization was growing and people were just more and more reacting towards this tendency. And this is how Art Nouveau has been started. Daum has always been presenting pieces, you know, linked to the expression of nature. Very few brands as much involved in creation as Daum. I would even say that it looks a little bit like an artist. An artist, when he creates, when he paints, when he makes sculpture, he hasn't really the choice of what he's doing. He is obliged to work in a certain direction because its own feeling obliges us. We have to cope with a number of realities, industrial realities, commercial realities, but basically, you know, the real basic line which is behind everything has to be linked with what Daum is.
Why are you playing with glass and crystal?
That's the history of love.
When did you start with Daum?
4 years ago.
And what have you done with Daum? What has been your strategy?
Daum at that time was very, very innovative, but in a number of directions, which were not fully linked to what was Daum, and also not fully linked to the customer needs.
Yes.
We have some pieces which should be seen as sculptures, and we have specifically a department which is called Édition d'Art, which is composed of pieces developed with external artists. We have been working with Dali, we have been working with Armand, or César,
yeah,
or those.
What's the fascination of crystal and glass?
Crystal and glass, you have a wonderful and lovely material. You get some transparency, some, you know, our pâte de verre, which is crystal, but crystal which is recooked.
Yes.
You prepare first the crystal, like a normal crystal, and then you put it once again in a specific mold, and then that's a crystal which has specific colors, specific brightness, specific transparency, specific bubbles. We can, you know, make more bubbles, less bubbles, depending what kind of product we are doing. So, a pâte de verre piece is in kind of, as far as the material is concerned, very fascinating.
How do you make crystal?
Crystal first is made in the traditional way, which is you have a specific mix of a number of material, which is basically two things. Sand.
Yes.
That's a very specific sand, which is our own sand is not the same sand than any other crystal maker. We are very proud of it. We won't tell you where we.
Oh, I know. It's the Bahamas.
So, and we put some lead. Also.
Lead, yes.
That's the two main things.
But why do you put lead in? What does that do?
You know, the interest of lead is that then you get something which is somewhat linked to metal, which means that you get a specific transparency, you get a specific noise. So we get it cooked, and then, you know, it's liquid.
Yes.
And then when, for instance, we make a glass, we have our people working around the big furnace.
Yes.
And just taking the crystal,
The liquid, yes.
and then blowing it with their mouth to make, for instance,
a vase
glass,
or a vessel, yes.
and cutting it and working on it. You know, it is at that time you can work on it because, you know, it
melts. It's malleable.
exactly.
Yes.
So that's crystal, and that's the way crystal has been done for the last 2 centuries. Every crystal maker has its own little menu for mixing and therefore its own color. But the verre starts after the first phase of making crystal. We use the lost wax technique, the same as which is used for bronze.
Yes.
And so we put, instead of putting some bronze, liquid bronze, in a big mold,
Yes.
we put our small pieces of groisil, of crystal,
Yes.
inside, and then we put it in a big oven, and it's getting to be cooked during, depending on the size of the piece, between 1 week and 4 weeks. And then we open the oven and we take off the piece with its big plaster mold around
Yes.
it. We break by hand the mold, and then we discover the piece. And once we opened the oven and we found the piece, first we were very disappointed because it was not what we were aiming at. But after a while, I remember all the people around the table were just wondering, and nobody was daring to say, beautiful piece.
It was a mistake that worked beautifully.
Exactly.